I've developed an online coaching system that can support a $100,000 per year income, working just 40 hours per week. In today's podcast, what I'd like to explain is how we can create a coaching model that balances both energy and income. This is important because it prevents burnout. One of the biggest challenges I see with the trainers that I work with in order to develop their business models is that they often will pursue money and pursue what the client wants to the detriment of their own needs. They end up creating a system that no longer works for them. They might reach the money components, the money goals that they're looking for. If they do, they don't usually then last very long because they burn out. We would like to find a workflow that feels more natural to us, however that feels for you, so that way you can be consistent with it long term. In business, what really wins is just long-term consistency. You want to build trust, you want to build a rapport with people. Once they know you, they get a sense of understanding what you're about. You're consistent in the way that you deliver things, the way you act. They develop this trust. And it's in that trust then that they would hire you to let you be a part of their life. Whatever their goals are incredibly intimate and personal to them. They are going to devote a significant portion of their life to try to achieve this goal. And who they allow to share that journey, even direct that journey in their life, is extremely important. And they're only going to choose somebody if they think that person can help them reach the goal. And often in part of that decision, it's not always the case, but in part of that decision is understanding, okay, this person is someone that I would feel comfortable interacting with, meaning I like their personality. I believe they have the knowledge, I believe they have the experience, but there is this kind of personality, this trust component, this connection component. That isn't always the case. I know I've worked with some clients in the past who have hired coaches who were complete jerks, but the coach had this major achievement, and they're like, well, if I want that, I'm going to hire the person who has it. And then they found out, oh crap, that person might have only known how to do that because they got there for themselves, maybe through genetics, luck. Maybe they developed a system that worked just for them, and then they applied that system to everyone else rather than figuring out how that system would be opened and applied in unique personal ways. So usually if they did choose somebody that didn't include the personality component, that worked temporarily, if at all, and then they faded out of that or quit, and then they're now looking for someone where there is a personality component. So in order for us to be consistent long-term, to be in business long-term, to gain the trust and work with people long-term, to make this a lifestyle, to make this a career, it's important that we create a business model that feels as natural to us as possible. So that way, there's not a lot of friction every day. You don't feel miserable every day. It's not this thing that you're fighting against. It's something that fires you up and makes you excited. For me, the model that I like and I've developed, and then I've used that as a way to motivate others on how to develop theirs, meaning I don't push my framework on other people, but we take the concepts of my framework that does work for me and find out how it works for the other person. So for example, I like making podcasts. I like making visual things. Maybe somebody else doesn't. They like to write. Okay, fine. They're going to do a newsletter, maybe a daily blog. They're going to find their way of communicating with their clients in a way that feels natural to them. So if it's not video, that's fine. You still need to communicate though. We still need to have some way for people to learn what you know so then they can know if what you know would help them. So that's kind of my system is we know that presenting information to people is necessary. How can we do that for you? And what are the right types of topics and consistency, cadence and things like that? For me, my system really developed from years of in-person training. I started training people in person when I was 16. I'm now 42. It took me a second there to remember. So I've been doing this for a really long time, 26 years. And I started training people in person. I was fired up. I loved it. I thought it was super fun. I got really into it when you would see someone, you would be able to share with them. They come to you and say, hey, I have this issue or I have this problem. And you're like, holy crap, I know I know what you need. Let me show it to you. And then you show it to them and they're like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And you're like, yeah, I know, this is amazing. And it just fires up and it feels awesome. I love training. I love personal training in one-on-one coaching. At the peak of my career of doing that, I was training in person, face-to-face for 10 to 12 hours a day. That was insane. And it wasn't like, oh, the person did the first 15 minutes on the treadmill or, there was like this time away from you. It was literally from minute 1 to minute 60, face-to-face talking and counting reps and teaching them things. And it was 10 to 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, plus extra time on Saturdays. I died doing it, but it was extremely fun, really motivating, and there's no other way you're going to put in whatever the heck that would be, 60 plus hours a week. And then I still had to train, like clean my gym, do all the finances, do all their nutrition programs, training programs. I had to train myself. If I wanted to see anybody outside of work, which I never did, but if I wanted to do that, that had to happen outside of those hours. But that was where I started, was just an overload of in-person training. I couldn't possibly train more people in person anymore. Yes, I could have moved to group sessions. I don't personally like group sessions. I do like the more one-on-one type stuff. And it's because I really love the nuances of problem solving, which is why I do one-on-one virtual coaching. I like solving someone's problem as precisely as freaking possible. It's a perfectionist chase, if that makes sense. I'm always trying to figure out the absolute best freaking thing I can possibly do in that moment, which then defeats itself because the second you fix that issue, so for example, if they're doing a lift and they're weak in their hamstrings, you would address that. But then as you strengthen their hamstrings, something else in the chain becomes the weak thing, and now you chase that. And then something else, and you chase that. And it's like, super exciting. And then even outside of training, it could be like they're maybe having sleep problems. So you'd try to figure out the sleep problems. If they had food, you'd try to figure out the food. I learned how to do a lot of manual therapies on people, like physical therapy type drills, because my clients needed it, but they didn't have the time or the extra money to go to physical therapist. So I remember there was a physical therapist I was going to, and I said, hey, out of curiosity, would you mind teaching me like what you know, like what books did you read in school? And he's like, oh, those were all really boring. I was like, I don't care. Like, what are they? So he showed me one of his books. I bought it. I read the whole thing. And then I went back to him like the next month, and I was like, dude, what else? Like, do you have the list? Do you have your curriculum from back when you were in school? He goes, what do you mean? I said, I've read that book. And he's like, holy freaking crap. And I was like, yeah. I was like, tell me more. So I loved it so much. So that was really the chase for me, the drive for me, the excitement for me was, how do I solve my clients' problems? And I really, really, really love doing it in super nuanced, detailed ways. I love learning. I'm a really dorky person in the sense that I love learning. My wife laughs because I'm probably the only, as she says, I'm probably the only husband who will sit and watch like skincare videos. We watch videos about like makeup, a bunch of other stuff. And the reason why I like it is because there's something new to learn. She's teaching me about exfoliants and, when do you put on a serum versus a cream and all these other things. I just love it. I think it's super cool because the more I can learn, the more that might help a client down the line. Like I help clients get ready for, aesthetic competitions. Like we've helped IFBB pros, natural pros get on stage, and skincare is huge, absolutely incredibly huge. You want to make sure that the tan looks right on their skin, but then also they want to prevent wrinkles over time. Maybe they have loose skin in their belly or like under their butt. So we want to address that. There's just all these things that are fun little weird nuances that I love learning. So I'm a big learning person. So therefore, I got way off track there. But that's why I don't enjoy group stuff as much, because it's just you're applying like, oh, here's a workout that would work for most people. And since I'm having a variety of people in this group, I have to kind of do it more generic. And to me, that is incredibly boring. Oh my God, it's like torture. It's torture to do something that is generic. I just don't like doing it. So I like the one-on-one stuff. However, like I said, I started getting too extended in one-on-one. I couldn't train more than 60 hours one-on-one stuff. And I had a higher interest in, like there were still more people wanting to work with me. And then also it maxed out my income. And the area that I was living at the time really about $60 per hour was about as much as that area could support socioeconomic status wise. So it wasn't a big city. And I could charge more, but then I wasn't going to get as many people. And yeah, I might be able to make equal amount of money, but I'm not making more money, and I'm actually helping less people. So why the hell would I do that? That's not fun. So for me, doing virtual coaching really started to make more sense because I could help people on a one-on-one scale, but it didn't take a whole hour to help just one person. That's one of the main reasons why I got into doing the podcast. I've made over 2,300 or something. I don't even know. I think 2,300 or some podcasts at this point. I'm fired up and excited because I was like, wow, if I help 10 clients in one day, I've only talked to 10 people, but I could do a podcast and I could talk to hundreds. That's way more motivating. That's super exciting, right? So I started doing virtual coaching. I started doing the podcast because I wanted to reach more people and help more people. And that virtual coaching really developed for me a way to continue to push the income, but continue to reach more people. There was actually a time in my life where I was actually counting and tracking the number of touches, is what I called it, touches per day, because I realized I wasn't making as much of an impact in the world as I felt like I could, and that was making me depressed. I was really only getting to talk to 10 to 12 people a day. There was, our gym was relatively small at the time. It was like 3,500 square feet. I only needed about 50 to 60 members to pay the bills, and that's about where I capped it at. So that way it wasn't overly full and I could still train my clients. So maybe, not all 50 to 60 people came in every day, unfortunately. But I might talk to maybe at most 20 to 30 people in one day. And I was like, that's not as fun. Like I know enough to help more people. So then I started that podcast, started getting into a lot more people, and then virtual coaching has opened me up to a lot more people as well. Like we now have clients over 7 countries in the world, which is insane, absolutely insane. That is so cool to me. But it's been super fun, super motivating. I've gotten really excited just explaining it, so you can tell how this definitely matches the way I like to do things and what my natural flow, my natural interest is. So that's how I set up my work. Is I was doing in-person coaching, and then I started realizing, well, that's not going to work forever. So how about I would meet with you once, like I used to meet with people like 2 to 3 times a week because I was only charging so little they could afford it. So then I was like, okay, let's go to once a week, and then I'll give you the workouts to do on the other days. And then every week we would talk in the in-person session, but then I was like, okay, that still is a capacity. Let me go to once a month. We would meet once a month in person. I would teach them whatever concepts were important since the last month that we worked out. So they would do all these workouts on their own, but for us to communicate only once a month, there was too much communication. We weren't even getting really a good training session in because they were talking so much and asking questions, which wasn't a bad thing, but it was just more talking than it was training. So then I was like, okay, I need a way to communicate with them in between our sessions. And Gmail, which is what I was using for email at the time, was too chaotic and too sporadic. It was like somebody would ask me a question and I was like, where was that, like 7 emails ago, 10 emails ago? So I started using Google Drive. And that was now a one-place document that's like an endless document. You can use Control F and find whatever topic you want to find in previous things you've talked about. So now we would use Google Drive to do Q&A between our in-person sessions. And then eventually when I closed the gym, because I was making more money doing virtual coaching and it made sense, we bought a house. Our whole walkout basement in our house now is a gym. So I have my office and a full gym that you'll see in some of our YouTube videos. So very blessed, but it didn't make sense now to have the gym, the public gym. So I closed that, and then we transitioned, okay, well, we're not going to meet in person anymore because I don't want to go to another gym and pay all these extra fees and crap. So we just switched to virtual coaching. So it was, okay, we'll do a virtual coaching, and then we'll do that Google Doc in between. I'll still write your workouts, nutrition program, and we'll still stay in touch. And that has been kind of what this service now developed into, is everybody I work with, we have an initial virtual consultation. So we will meet, quote unquote, face to face, talk through everything that they want to do, give a lot of feedback, kind of like discuss what is needed. And then from there, they'll either take that information and go on their own, or we roll that into a monthly service. And that monthly service, there's 2 options. One, they can stay with just the Google Doc as our communication per week. And we do that, forever, or they can do option 2, which is we still have the monthly virtual consultation. So we would meet once a month and we do the Q&A Google Doc in between. I still write new training programs every 4 weeks for them. Nutrition program we update anytime, all the time, however our goals are needed. So that's not renewed only every 4 weeks, that's renewed whenever it's needed. But the training program is a new one every 4 weeks or updated sooner if needed as well. But that has developed to me a really great system that fits my natural communication style. What I love about it is we've been able to get great results. I've helped people, like I said, get IFBB Pro cards, natural Pro cards, world records in powerlifting, national records in powerlifting. I've helped professional athletes, which is super cool, in multiple professional sports. Olympic Games athletes, actually CrossFit Games athletes too. You name it. It's been fun to have a variety of everybody, really high level as well as any level underneath that. But this method works great, and especially for actually the more busier, the higher achievement level athletes, virtual communication is almost necessary because we're never going to be able to meet in person because they're traveling a million different places for all the different sports and different responsibilities for sponsorships and whatnot. So really the virtual component was necessary for the more advanced athletes anyhow. So it doesn't feel like it's a lesser type of service. Maybe in the off season we might catch an in-person session from time to time, but the virtual session seems to work great and it's been producing excellent results. So no need to change it if it's working well. Now, one of the reasons why I really love this style of a model is, and this is the big takeaway in today's podcast, is nothing I do is time bound. Meaning nothing needs to be done at a certain time all the time. Meaning every Monday at X time I have to do X, Y, Z. Or every Tuesday at this time I have to do X, Y, Z. What I love about my job is that I can do what I need to do whenever I want to do it. So that is how I balance both income and energy. The energy part is I don't feel like I'm restricted by having things in place that have to be done at a certain time. Now, when I set up consultations, I don't have set in stone recurring consultations that person or I don't have the option to change it if we need to. One of the things I love about my job is I get to balance my work with my wife's work. My wife, she has kind of a corporate job, the typical, which is funny to say, is like, I was about to say typical 9 to 5, but corporate is like more like 8 to 8. So crazy long hours, super intense. She does really cool, mind-numbing stuff. So I'm very happy for her. But she has a daytime work schedule, and sometimes she'll have a day off. Sometimes we might need to go have an appointment, and if she's going to go to an appointment, I like to go with her. Like I have the luxury, the blessing, the benefit. I'm grateful for all of it, to where if she's going to go to a doctor's appointment, rather than her going alone, I'm like, hey, do you mind if I tag along, or why don't we go together? And that way we get time to share in the car ride to the appointment. We get time to share on the car ride back. And that's how we get more time together. We met later in life. We met in our late 30s. And it's been an amazing blessing. She's literally the answer to every prayer I had. So although we met her late, I'm glad I didn't screw it up and I still got to meet her. But since we did meet late, I'm very appreciative of the time that we would get to spend, and I don't want to miss any of that. That's what I love about this job, is I can fluctuate and change my hours based on whatever the heck is happening in her life or my life, and it allows me to maximize more of our time together, but still make a good income to support our family and live up to my responsibility of our relationship. So my side of it, to support her and make sure that her needs are met in whatever way I can do that. So I really love this type of job for those reasons. And the big component that allows that to happen is having things that are not time bound. So when you're creating your business model, it's an extremely important consideration is, if I offer this service, am I binding myself now to a specific day and time for this service? So if you're like, I'm always going to do, group chats on Fridays at noon. Woof, hold up a second. Make sure that Fridays at noon is something you can be consistent with, that isn't going to come at the detriment of other things. So you're not saying no to a bunch of other stuff that you really would have loved to have said yes to, because you're going to start to resent that service. You're going to resent that component of what you do. That's going to start to build friction. That's going to start to build this underlying that you're not going to be able to get rid of. That then can lead to burnout. It can also lead to you just providing a service less than your best. If you show up and you're angry to be there, you're not going to have a good energy. People are going to understand that. They're going to feel that. It's not going to lead to a good service. And you'll notice that service actually probably won't do as well as other services. So if you have ways in which you communicate with people or services that you offer, you're going to find, if you do a little bit of research into it, that the services that match your natural flow, your natural energy, your natural preferences probably make more money per time spent doing it, because you're more invested into it, you're more excited about it, and that shows in how you prepare for it, that shows in how you work the details to perfect it, that shows in how you actually show up when you do it. It will show. So I'm a big fan of the clients, the trainers I work with when we're developing their systems and building out their models, is that we want to avoid as much time-bound components as possible. Try to avoid it as much as you possibly can. You might not always be able to at different stages of your career. So when I was first starting, I was doing the 10 to 12 hours of in-person every day. That's as time-bound as you can damn near get. But at least I loved it. I loved doing it. I was tired, exhausted, and miserable all the time, but I was happy, if that makes sense. I eventually ran out of the way to be able to help more people. So that was a stage in my life where I built up my reputation in the area that I moved to. So I didn't grow up here. I grew up north, and when I moved down south to go to my master's in nutrition and teach at the university, I did that for a couple of years, but then I had to build my reputation down here. I still had clients from up north, but I needed to build the client base down south. So therefore, I had to start training people cheap. I had to start training a lot of people in person as much as I could possibly get to build that reputation, to build the public gym. I built the public gym before I really had any client base. So it was like, holy crap, now I took out this loan for equipment. I think the loan was $80,000. Then I had an initial $30,000 to get the building set up and get rent started. So I was, right off the bat, $110,000 in debt. Crazy. I'm sure people have had larger numbers than that, but for me, that was a ridiculous amount of money. Good God. But I knew, okay, I've got to make this work. I have $110,000 I'm accountable for. I need to pay these loans off as fast as possible. I'm going to need to get people in the door for the gym. I'm going to need to get people in the door for training sessions. So thankfully, I was able to pay all that off. But golly, I had to grind for a long time to get that done. And that was at that time where I needed to be. But I did know that eventually I needed to start to transition out of that. And one of the components I was looking at when I was considering transitions of services was the time-bound component. One of the big things that kind of pushed that for me is we ran into 2020. We all know what happened in 2020. But then also my wife's mother, so my mother-in-law, she had a stroke, and we had to move her down where we live and become full-time caretakers. And that was just bonkers, because every medical appointment you would ever have is right in the middle of the freaking day. So I all of a sudden was like, crap, I have all these clients, I have a gym to run, but now I got to help, take her to all these appointments. I got to help manage all this. So really it was forced on me in the sense of, it wasn't like I had epiphany and I already knew all this stuff. It was just like, holy freaking crap, if I need to take her to an appointment at 10 a.m. and I have a client at 10 a.m., what am I going to cancel my person at 9 so I can take her to the appointment, cancel my person at 10, and then cancel my person at 11 because there's no way I'm going to be back in time for that person. So all of a sudden I'm missing 3 sessions in order to take to one appointment. That's a lot of money, and that's 3 disappointed people. 3 disappointed people on one day might start to turn into, hey, you know what? We've missed a session or 2 here or there. I think I'm going to go with somebody else for my service. And it's like, whoa, that's not good. So you're losing clients long term. You're losing the money that day. You're losing clients long term. You're losing reputation. Ugh, none of that is good stuff. So I really quickly needed to learn how to pivot into something that allowed more freedom. And that was a main kind of driver for that. And then as I started to figure out how to do that, it really helped me develop the system I have now, where it's cultivated into virtual coaching that allows for a good steady income, but also in a way that matches my energy, my natural flow, and my excitement for this job and excitement for life. So that's the main takeaway in today's video is when you're developing your coaching model, be careful not to time bound the services that you provide. You want to avoid that as much as you can. You might need to, in the season you're in, do it. Just do it, get some money, build your reputation, build the business, but then understand that that's a component that you might need to later on undo. So some of the services, like there's one of the trainers I work with, they have a private studio and they'll have people come in, they do 15 minutes on a piece of cardio, they work 15 minutes with a trainer, and then they have 15-minute like cool down stretching, and then they're out the door. So their way of kind of advertising is you're in and out in under an hour, and all of your needs are taken care of. You get to meet a personal trainer. But the way they have it structured is, since it's 15 minutes without the trainer, doing cardio, 15 minutes with the trainer, then 15 minutes stretching, that trainer really can have 3 clients at one time. Because one of them is doing cardio, one of them is with them, and one of them is doing stretching. Now, what they did was they got a lot of people funneled through the door. They live in a major city, so it works out really well. They were doing it starting at 5 a.m. all the way down to like, I think 8 or 9 at night. But as the business grew and they made money, they started to hire a trainer and say, hey, I need you to come in from 5 to 11. Then the owner would come in from 11 till close. And then eventually it was like, oh, okay, let me get a morning person, let me get a closing person. And then the owner can now just trickle in the middle of the day when they need to. And it allows them for a lot of freedom. But when they first started, it was 5 a.m. to 8 at night. And that was their day. I mean, literally every Monday through Friday, and then they had Saturdays. But then eventually they pulled themselves out and hired trainers. So you can do it that way, in which you can adjust the service that you offer, or you can actually just adjust who's doing the service, who's providing the service. So there's ways in which we can play with that component, but being mindful of what you're committing yourself to on being time bound is extremely important. I think I beat a dead horse probably at this point. You got the idea. But I thought it would be fun to share that component that a lot of people may or may not be aware of, or maybe you're not giving enough attention to it if you are aware of it. That is how you're going to best balance making an income but having energy, is avoiding time-bound components and trying to find a business model that is something that you feel is natural for you. You're not chasing income. You're not chasing what the client wants. You're saying to yourself is, how do I want to provide this service? That's a better framework than saying, oh, what would they pay me for? What will people pay me for? No. That's a little risky. Again, you're going to develop a system that maybe hurts you and grinds against you. It's tons of friction. You'll get tons of burnout. So instead, say, how do I want to provide this service? And then build your model around that. Awesome. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. If you want any help developing a coaching system, you can sign up for one-on-one consultations on our website, C3Method.com. The 3 spelled out C-H-R, C-T-H-R-E-E method. So the 3 spelled out T-H-R-E-E. So C-T-H-R-E-E method.com. You can also go to C3Method.kit.com, which is K-I-T, C3Method.kit.com, and you'll see a couple nutrition programs we have there. I'm developing more of my B2B stuff now for B2C, so giving it out to customers, and I'm excited about that because these models have worked really well within business to business, like other businesses, and now I want to start to provide that to more customers that don't have like a partnership or an affiliation with us. So very excited about that. If you want to check that out, we have a couple products on there now. It's C3Method.kit.com. Awesome. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. The more we can share this stuff with everyone else, hopefully it helps them. So just the more people we've reached, the more people can help. That's the whole goal. Okay, if you need anything, let me know. And as always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.